In the Emperor Joker storyline, the Joker stole the power of the fifth-dimensional imp Mr. Mzizptalk, making him a literal god, capable of bending reality to his will, who then used that power to repeatedly kill Batman in the most grotesque and violent ways imaginable, where his final death was being devoured alive by vultures. Unfortunately, Joker's actions were corroding the fabric of space and time, forcing Superman to trick him into abandoning his powers, making him believe he'd never be complete without Batman. But when reality was remade, Bruce's mind was understandably traumatized by everything he had experienced, and despite Clark believing he would bounce back, Spectre assured Clark he wouldn't, forcing Clark to accept Bruce's pain by carrying his memories, as he still needed Bruce. In the Obsidian Age, the Justice League fought a supernatural Atlantean legion known as the Ancients. During this battle, we see some of the most horrific Justice League deaths, including Kyle Rayner getting his heart ripped out, Flash getting his legs forcibly removed, and Martian Manhunter getting barbecued. But while all of this was happening, Bruce and Wonder Woman were somewhat occupied, only to be seen later among the victims, impaled upon a spike alongside the others. Luckily, Manitou Raven brought the heroes back to the land of the living, using a combination of time travel and magic. In an alternate reality where Kal-El landed in the Soviet Union, he grew to become the leader of the country, where Batman worked in the shadows as usual, but this time against the regime, due to his anti-Soviet views. But in an attempt to face Super Comrade head-on, he kidnapped Diana, luring him close enough, believing he could overpower him, under lights simulating red sunlight, where he ultimately failed, forcing him to detonate the bomb he had swallowed. Right after exposing, the man who had betrayed him was Joseph Stalin's son Pyotr. When Saturn Queen and Lightning Lord tampered with DC's time stream, they created an alternate world in which Batman and Superman ruled as dictators, who considered each other brothers, united by the manipulative parenting. But after killing anyone who stood against them, Wonder Woman gathered rebels to bring the regime down, and during the final battle, she spoke of a legend regarding Batman and Superman as Earth's greatest protectors, before impaling Bruce with her sword, leaving Superman devastated, who returned to the Watchtower, where his so-called father instigated his vengeance. So he tracked down Diana and killed her using her own lasso, and continued to hunt down any remaining rebels until the dark reality was returned to normal and the deaths were undone. When Bruce Wayne woke up in Arkham, Alfred claimed Batman was never real, all in an attempt to protect him from the truth. But as he refused to accept it, he almost tore through the entire asylum, before Alfred eventually confessed, telling Bruce Batman failed. So in an attempt to uncover the cause of the terrible future, he learns a new evil has risen in Gotham, led by a man calling himself Omega, who had killed Darkseid and used the anti-life equation to enslave Gotham, amplifying the effects through Martian Manhunter's telepathy. And despite being haunted by the death of pretty much everyone other than Dick Grayson, he was determined to save Gotham. So determined, he teamed up with the Joker as his new Robin, where they infiltrated Omega's lair, which strongly resembled the Batcave. But instead of keeping tributes to allies, it was filled with trophies of conquest. And when Omega returned, he killed the Joker and revealed himself as the real Bruce Wayne, who broke bad after the public turned on superheroes, and eventually created a clone of his younger self to succeed him in his new world. But during the final battle, the altruistic clone brutally impaled him on the same spike that held Darkseid's head, then took up the mantle, hoping to redeem what Batman was originally meant to be. After Darkseid used Cyborg as a vessel for the anti-life equation, it evolved into a techno-organic plague, infecting 600 million people almost instantly through internet-connected devices, turning everyone into violent creatures of destruction. Luckily, Clark managed to save his family just in time, which included Damian, who was sleeping over, but he was unable to contact Bruce, who had cut the power too late, resulting in the virus infecting both Dick Grayson and Tim Drake, who ultimately managed to bite Bruce, as he didn't want to hurt them. So after the Super Family and Damian found a way to contact Bruce, he was wearing Mr. Freeze's old suit, explaining he was almost out of time, before assuring Clark he would have to kill anyone infected in order to save humanity, where he afterwards apologized to Damian, telling him Alfred had a gift for him. Seconds later, he turned, charging Alfred on sight, who calmly used his shotgun to kill Bruce just as he had been instructed to do, and he didn't even have time to grieve, as he needed to deliver Damian's present, his very own batsuit, which he desperately needed as Captain Atom had been infected, causing him to self-destruct, wiping Metropolis straight off the map. Following the ending of Injustice 2, Damian Wayne took up the mantle as Batman, teaming up with He-Man from another dimension, all to take down dictator Superman. So when the Resistance attacked Metropolis Crater, Damian and He-Man located Bruce, who had been imprisoned and enslaved with Brainiac technology. But while Orko freed him with magic, Damian tried making Bruce remember who he was, until Wonder Woman ambushed him, snapping Damian's neck with her lasso. But as Bruce witnessed everything, the pure shock broke him out of his trance, where he afterwards ripped himself free, reclaiming the title of Batman, only for Diana to almost give him the exact same treatment if she hadn't hesitated, wanting Bruce to admit he chose the wrong side, ultimately resulting in her getting cut down. And despite fighting against each other, Superman was saddened by the death of Damian. Therefore, he was willing to hear Bruce out, who wanted to unite their forces against Darkseid instead. instead of each other. But during the final battle, He-Man and Superman managed to defeat Darkseid, only for Clark to steal the Orb of Power and the Spirit of Grayskull, using it to kill Skeletor in his own twisted attempt to fix everything. When the Joker had Batman at his mercy, who in a desperate attempt to extract the remaining Dionysium from Joker's blood had underestimated him, he showed him a picture of an entire puddle of Dionysium, claiming their efforts were in vain. However, the Joker had been tricked, as Dick Grayson was the one behind the mask, while Bruce was scouring the caves beneath the Batcave, ultimately locating the puddle. So he quickly extracted a sample, before Joker's explosives blew the entire cave apart. Unfortunately, it took too long, and the Joker managed to ambush Bruce, turning it into one of their most brutal encounters, as the Dionysium hadn't just healed the Joker, but also made him faster and stronger, where he actually managed to beat Bruce in close combat and was about to kill him when a piece of the shattered cave broke his back. So, as the cave kept tumbling down, Bruce held on to the Joker, making sure he couldn't reach the Dionysium, resulting in the death of both of them. Fortunately, Bruce was revived, although this temporarily left him with no memory of ever being Batman. When Earth 2's Thomas Wayne aka Flashpoint Batman teamed up with Dick Grayson as a resistance team to eliminate Telos and his forces, they were ambushed by a group of New Earth Bat-Rogues, where Thomas was quickly outnumbered as Dick was dragged away, forcing him to do something drastic, promising they would never hurt another Wayne before blowing himself up alongside everyone else. This terrifying but necessary death reminded Grayson that, regardless of his methods, Thomas always meant well, and he felt bad about leaving his body but needed to find his son, only to get ambushed by the Joker, who got ambushed by Telos, resulting in Dick being screwed either way. While battling a highly skilled Talon from the Court of Owls, Bruce was forced to push past his limits, where he ultimately managed to win despite being severely wounded. But after promising to return for the others, he escaped into a freezing river, only to get trapped underneath layers of ice, where he realized he was dead before going unconscious. Luckily, Harper Row fished him out and shocked him back to life using jumper cables, but he wasn't the same as before. He crawled towards the Batcave confused and disoriented, where Alfred instantly realized something was wrong. As Bruce was so terrified, he started shaking upon seeing a dead Talon, which Alfred had found while looking for Bruce. But after calming down, Bruce started inspecting the assassin, learning his real identity was Dick Grayson's great-grandfather, which enraged Dick, who hated Bruce for keeping secrets, till Bruce punched his lights out, revealing an owl embedded in his tooth, symbolizing Dick was meant to become a Talon, something Bruce had already expected. Part of the Batman RIP arc after Final Crisis, we see a psychological story where Batman is already dead, and during the funeral, all of Gotham's villains show up. However, throughout the story, we see different versions of how people claimed Batman died, naming themselves as the culprits, including Alfred, who told his version, a story of serving a master who one day decided to fight crime despite having no talent for it. So to protect him while maintaining his smile, Alfred orchestrated everything, hiring fake villains, even played the part of the Joker every once in a while, until Bruce eventually found out and approached Riddler recklessly, knowing he was an actor. But the actor hired to play Riddler had gotten so immersed into the role, he actually believed it was real and shot Batman. Naturally, the story made zero sense, as the Joker literally sat in the room. In this comic from 1974, Batman died when he was electrocuted on a high-voltage window frame. However, after being declared dead, Ray Palmer, also known as the Atom, shrunk down and entered the body, ultimately locating Bruce's brain, where he began to pilot Batman's body like a mech suit. During this time, Atom solved Bruce's final case as a tribute to his old friend, before returning the body, leaving the doctors bamboozled. Oddly enough, Atom's actions somehow brought Batman back to life, highlighting the oddball nature of some early DC stories, which makes a lot more sense when remembering that marijuana usage doubled in the 1970s. When Bruce was pursuing Elmo Galvin, a villain who had been electrocuted for his crimes once, he was ambushed by another villain, calling himself the Electrocutioner, who zapped Batman with enough electricity to power 2 towns, ultimately killing him. But when Tim Drake arrived, he forced the Electrocutioner to save Bruce by punching him until he had no other options but to do as he was told, since Tim was wearing insulated gear while wielding a wooden staff, making his electric powers useless. Pretty much exactly how Luffy vs. Enel played out, and after jump-starting Bruce's heart repeatedly, he eventually woke up, leaving the case to Tim Drake after telling him he'd made him proud. On Damian Wayne's 18th birthday, John gifted him a white suit, hoping he'd represent the light during the final battle against the god Ouroboros. That's when everyone was killed for 1 minute, as Warworld carried them through the Doom Tube, from their universe and into Limbo, where Ouroboros was waiting for them. But no matter how hard they fought, nothing even scraped Ouroboros, who regarded them as less than mosquitoes. Their only hope was Cyborg and Damian's secret weapon. But when Cyborg no longer remembered their plan, Damian revealed he'd hacked his system and extracted the anti-life equation before injecting it into himself, making him a living bomb who in 3 minutes would collide with Ouroboros, creating a new universe. So Vic quickly warned the others, as Ouroboros reached out to Damian, desperately trying to save his own existence. But as Ouroboros had taken Bruce and the rest of the Bat family from him, he would gladly sacrifice himself to kill him. However, John refused to leave, where Alfred, who possessed the power of Spectre by the way, promised to take him to Damian in astral form. So he sat beside Damian during his final moments, mentioning he was a great Batman right before he created a Big Bang. And years later, Alfred still visited the universe Damian had become, walking across the planets, thinking to himself he missed his boys. When Monarch's army fought the challengers from beyond, Batman of Earth 51 pursued the Joker. However, Ultraman saw a window of opportunity and splattered Bruce from behind with a single strike. This random murder precluded many more multiversal deaths that occurred during the Final Crisis event, including the death of another Batman during the climax of Final Crisis, which I haven't included on its own as Bruce was actually sent through time and would later fight to return to his own time, but it delivered an iconic panel of Superman holding Bruce's remains.